Hello, my name is Jennifer Campbell. I'm a graduate student in the Auburn University's Nurse Educator and Nurse Practitioner program. I have developed a diabetes technology presentation for the Nurse Educator Practicum. I also will be including a diabetes technology pamphlet that kind of is a good overview of the presentation as well. And just to give you a little bit of background information on me and why I chose diabetes technology. Diabetes is very near and dear to my heart. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes whenever I was 19 years old. So I was just beginning my nursing career or nursing education career. So I am a firm believer in diabetes technology and the benefit that it can bring to diabetes patients. So I've put together a presentation I hope you will enjoy, and then I hope you will forgive the format that I'm giving in. We are in the coronavirus outbreak, so this is how I will be presenting my presentation. Let's begin with a little overview on type 1 diabetes. So more than 9% of the US population currently has diabetes. That will be type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, as well as gestational diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is ranked as one of the most common childhood diseases. Worldwide, 79,100 people develop type 1 diabetes annually. Type 1 diabetes, as well as type 2 diabetes, have microvascular and macrovascular complications. Diabetes patients are twice as likely to develop heart disease, stroke, renal failure, have limb amputations, and also develop blindness. Insulin pump therapy allows programmed insulin delivery to include multiple basal infusion rates that mimic the physiological patterns of insulin secretion and contain flexible bolus doses of insulin for meals and to correct hyperglycemia. And then continuous glucose monitors provide a more accurate, complete picture of glucose readings throughout a period of time, supporting metabolic control, detecting patterns and trends, and creating a basis for an individualized diabetes patient regimen. I am a OmniPod user. I do have an insulin pump. It's OmniPod. And then I also do have a continuous glucose monitor. It's the Dexcom G6. So I'll be able to provide a little bit of personal insight on those two devices as we get to them. So for continuous glucose monitors, different continuous glucose monitors have different mechanisms of action, but in general, a continuous glucose monitor is a smart wearable device that tracks blood glucose throughout the day and night, notifying of highs and lows to give the diabetic a clear picture of their blood glucose levels. Continuous glucose monitors measures glucose levels from the interstitial fluid. Glucose monitors can aid in the proper management of symptoms, evaluating responses to therapy, achieving established glycemic targets, and preventing or delaying the progression of complications in both type 1 and type 2 diabetes patients. Automatically, the continuous glucose monitor checks blood glucose every 5 minutes and displays the number on the screen with certain devices. Most of the time, they're accessible to the iPhone and the Android user, and they have a share component allowing users to share blood glucose readings to another smartphone. So again, continuous glucose monitors, their mechanism of action and how they work does vary a little bit, but most of the time that's just an overview of how the continuous glucose monitor works. So continuous glucose monitors versus the self-monitoring blood glucose. CGMs measure blood glucose as often as every 5 minutes, which is approximately 228 readings daily. They have a real glucose trend, a real-time glucose trend. They can alert that can be transmitted to the patient during times of rising or falling glucose levels. Most of the time with a continuous glucose monitor, they're advancing so much that you don't have to do finger pricks as often or at all, considering what's regulated by the FDA and how that particular glucose monitor works. And then for certain CGMs can be integrated with an insulin pump, allowing the monitor to automatically adjust or pause insulin delivery in response to any significant changes in glucose. And then for self-monitoring blood glucose, it requires 4 to 7 measures daily, requiring a large commitment from the patient. So for the continuous glucose monitor, basically what you do is you place the sensor on your skin, you put the transmitter there, the transmitter sends to the readable device or your smartphone. And it's there, it's continuously either giving you readings, or whenever you place the readable device close to the sensor, it tells you exactly what your blood glucose is. Whereas with self-monitoring blood glucose, as you know, you're carrying all of your supplies, you're getting out your monitor, you're getting out your alcohol prep, you're getting out your finger stick, you're getting out the test strips, and you're cleaning your finger, you're pricking your finger, you're wiping it off, you're getting the blood, you're letting it test. So it's just a longer process and it takes more time, where the continuous glucose monitor is a continuous reading. So it creates a very at ease for patients to be able to go about their normal daily life and have just a minor setback to check their blood sugar, versus having to carry all the supplies with you and to take it out and to physically take the 5 minutes to do it. So continuous glucose monitors are very beneficial for patients, especially living a very fast-paced life. So the parts of the CGM, they most of the time have a wireless display device, which is the receiver, which has a screen to check current blood glucose levels. You can look at past data over the past 24 hours. It also has a trend graph to predict highs, lows, and how quickly each will occur. And then the transmitter is usually the small piece that fits onto the sensor and sends continuous glucose information data wirelessly to the display device. And then it also has a sensor, which is inserted underneath the skin. It's thicker than a needle and 1/2 inch long, and the sensor remains in the skin for several days, detecting the glucose information. So some continuous glucose monitors that we're going to look at. First, we're going to look at the Dexcom G6, and then the Freestyle Libre, and then the Medtronic Guardian Connect, as well as the CinSonic EverSense. So for the Dexcom G6, which is also the device that I have chosen, it tracks glucose levels at 5-minute intervals. They have a high and a low alarm, has a very high level of accuracy. It predicts lows. It alerts rates of glucose levels rising and falling. It integrates with Animas 5 insulin pump, as well as the Tandem Tslim X2 insulin pump. And then smartphones or CGM receivers is compatible for both. It has a large trend graph. It's easily set up with a no finger stick. It has a life of 10 days, and then it is more costly than other CGMs on the market. So the parts are the receiver, the sensor, and the transmitter. And so as you can see in the picture I've provided, the little gadget that looks like the remote, it is actually what puts the sensor on your body. So you would clean your skin, you would let it dry, and then you would remove the adhesive covering, and you would just place the device on your skin. And then where that orange button is, you would just press it down and it inserts the catheter just underneath your skin. And then the sensor is right below it. It's the smaller piece. It just goes into the that's the transmitter. The transmitter goes right into the sensor, and it transmits your readings straight to your phone or your receiver. And then what's also really handy about the Dexcom is, since it's iPhone compatible, it's also compatible for a watch, an Apple Watch. So whatever goes to your phone can also go to your watch. I found this one very helpful and very handy to use whenever I was in nursing school and didn't want to have my phone right there on my desk all the time. I just had it on my watch. I could just swipe up. It would show me exactly what my blood glucose level was. And so it was very real time, very handy to just have right there at my fingertips, where I didn't have to, again, take all my supplies out and do a finger prick to test my blood sugar. So I found that very handy. And also, Dexcom is one of the leading creators for CGMs, and they are actually partnering with OmniPod at the moment too. So hopefully it's going to be integrated with OmniPod as well. So that would be a really awesome loop system to be able to have, and you'll learn more about that later on in our slides. So the Freestyle Libre 14-day system, it utilizes a flash glucose monitoring. It does not continuously communicate readings. So this is the difference with the CGM, with the Freestyle Libre, is where the Dexcom gives you that every 5-minute accurate reading. The Freestyle Libre is just a flash glucose monitor. So it doesn't continuously send you readings all the time. You have to put this receiver close to it, and that's when it will give you the reading. Again, no finger stick, but it is a little bit less accommodating than the Dexcom G6. So no finger sticks are necessary, as we said. Greater accuracy than the 10-day system. So this is a 14-day system. Tricks of the trade for continuous glucose monitors are the longer that they're on, the more accurate that they are. So with the Dexcom, and I'm sure with all of the other continuous glucose monitors, there are lots and lots of different tricks that go into these systems, and you can actually make it work longer than recommended. So if you're able to lock or unlock the system, you can use it longer than your 10 days or your 14 days. So it is, the Freestyle Libre is greater accuracy than the 10-day system. The warm-up period is an hour. It features 8-hour historical trends, so it'll tell you what from 8 hours ago what your blood glucose was. It does have a 14-day system of monitoring. The reader is equipped with a built-in test strip port, which is also the same as other OmniPods and things like that. They also have the test strip ports. And then it's approved for adults 18 years and older. It may be used with acetaminophen. Dexcom is also able to be used with acetaminophen. The reader contains a trend arrow showing patients' glucose measures, a trend graph depicting the last 8 hours of the glucose history, and a visual alert if the glucose reading is rapidly changing. So no alarms that sound when glucose is out of range. So where the Dexcom is able to alert you pretty frequently, and it does have loud, obnoxious sounds to it, or you can also turn those off, the Freestyle Libre does not have sound to it. So you wouldn't be alerted in the middle of the night if you were going high or if you were going low. Also, it's only approved for adults 18 years and older, where the Dexcom is used by a younger generation and younger crowd. So that's just two little things that are different between the Freestyle Libre and the Dexcom. And then we have the Medtronic's Guardian Connect. It does send data straight to the iPhone. There's no option for non-iPhone receivers. So this one is strictly only iPhone use. You don't need the pump to use the Guardian Connect. So Medtronic's Guardian Connect is also intertwined with the loop system that Medtronic has. So if you did want an insulin pump and you chose to go with Medtronic, you could do the loop system. Excuse me. And it does require a separate inserter. It's approved for patients ages 14 to 75, so a little bit younger crowd can use this one. Requires calibration every 12 hours. It does have sharing capacity with up to 5 people. It does send data every 5 minutes, similar to the Dexcom. It is a waterproof system. And it does have a sugar IQ analysis, glucose, insulin, food, and other data to provide patients with tips and insight for a better understanding of their daily glucose patterns and the factors affecting them. So it does have a setting where you can put in what you're eating and what you're taking in, the exercise and things like that. And it shows a trend of what exactly is affecting your blood glucose. And then issues predictive alerts of impending highs or lows 10 to 60 minutes beforehand. So it does have those alarms just like the Dexcom does. So the CinSonic EverSense, this one's an interesting one that I was able to learn about. This is an implantable continuous glucose monitor. It measures blood in the interstitial fluid. It's capable of providing 90 days continuous wear. You can remove the transmitter without removing the sensor. Transmitter provides on-body vibration alarms even if the phone is out of range. Studies have shown EverSense to be as accurate or more accurate than currently commercially available continuous wear systems. Requires doctor's appointments and procedures every 90 days and has additional associated costs with that. It detects 96% of hypoglycemias and then 98% of hyperglycemia events. It does predict highs and lows with alerts. It does have a water resistance transmitter submerged up to 1 meter for 30 minutes. And then clinical trials have shown to help patients keep their blood sugar levels more stable and reduce A1C levels by 0.5%. So this one has a little bit, it's a different feature. It does go under your skin and it does stay for 90 days. As I said before, the longer the continuous glucose monitor can stay on the body or in the body, the more accurate that it is. So this one is known to be pretty accurate, but it also does have, it's required to be implanted by a physician. So for continuous glucose monitor availability, the Dexcom G6 is select insurance companies provide coverage for the device and patients on Medicare are eligible. So for the cost of the receiver, it's $355 for 1 year supply of receivers. It's $350 for 1 month supply of the sensors, and then $475 for 6 months supply of the transmitter. So again, they said that Dexcom is one of the higher ones on the market. I think that's also, it's used so much because it can go for a younger crowd. It's able to be used with another insulin pump. And it's also, since alerts, it will predict the highs and lows. It gives the alarm. So it's a very liked continuous glucose monitor, but is also a little bit more expensive. The Freestyle Libre are available with valid prescription in the US and covered by Medicare for patients who meet certain requirements. It is available at major retail pharmacies, and the readers average about $100, and then the monthly supplies are an average of $150. So where the Dexcom you have to get from a large supplier, you can get the Freestyle Libre from just your major retail pharmacies. The Medtronic Guardian Connect is the priciest among the continuous glucose monitors. 5-pack for 1 month supply of sensors is $553, plus the transmitter is $775, and that's a one-time purchase. The EverSense Bridge program allows eligible patients to receive the sensor for an initial $99, but payment does not apply to sensor placement procedure fees from the healthcare provider. So where the EverSense may be a little bit cheaper, if you're able to get on that program, you also have the placement procedure that could be of cost. Okay, so moving on to insulin pump therapy. Insulin pumps, they're some small computerized devices that deliver insulin through a thin tube that goes just underneath the skin. It has a basal rate setting, which is a small constant supply of insulin is delivered automatically at a personalized preset rate around the clock. And then there's a bolus feature, which is an additional dose of insulin can be delivered when the patient needs it. And that's either usually around mealtime or to correct a high blood glucose. The first insulin pump was invented in 1974. It was approximately the size of a microwave oven, and it was only used to treat diabetic ketoacidosis. Pumps might be considered for active people, for people who have frequent low blood glucose reactions, those who have gastroparesis, women who plan to become pregnant, and then people who want to use pumps bolus calculator functions to determine insulin doses. So pumps are a choice and they're not permanent. Different people react differently to pumps. Some people toss around the thought and want to know more about it, and then they decide that it's not what they want to do. But I think it's always really important when talking about pumps is to talk about that it isn't permanent and that you can try it and you can do it for a year or two and then decide to go back to shots. That's perfectly okay. For pumps, or people with diabetics tossing around the idea of pumps, from personal experience, whenever I was diagnosed with diabetes, I didn't want to pump because that was me saying that my diabetes could rule me, that I couldn't control my own blood sugar, so I needed somebody to do it for me, that I wasn't going to be a good nurse if I couldn't do it myself without the aid of a device. And then on into nursing school and on into life, I'm learning that insulin pump's just an aid. You still have to do it on your own. You still kind of need to know your calculations, and the insulin pump's just aiding you as well as the continuous glucose monitor. It's an aid. It's not controlling you and it's not defining you as a diabetic. So it is a choice. It's not a permanent decision, but it is a very helpful device. So the 3 pumps that we're going to look at are the Medtronic, the MiniMed 670G system, the Insulin Corporation OmniPod, and then the Tandem Diabetes Care T-Slim. So for OmniPod, OmniPod is a tubeless pump. It communicates via Bluetooth technology. It's controlled via a PDM, which is a personal diabetes management, and it works with OmniPod display app on the smartphone. The pod has a waterproof IP28 rating for up to 28 feet for 60 minutes. It's 72 hours of insulin delivery, and it holds up to 200 units of insulin. And at startup, the pod and the personal diabetes manager must be adjacent and touching. During normal operation, the personal diabetes management must be within 5 feet of the pod. So OmniPod is very prevalent in the pediatric population, and one feature that I really like about OmniPod is it is tubeless. So you don't have the tube and you don't have the PDM. You don't have to figure out where you can hook it to on your body so that you can hold on to it with the tube there as well. So I love that it's tubeless. I love that it communicates via Bluetooth. So that's a really cool feature. I can carry the PDM in my bag. Someone else can carry it that's going to be really close to me if we're on trips like at Disney World or wherever. And so that's really cool. I really like the tubeless feature. You can place it different spots where you can hide it from what you're going to wear. The only downfall for the OmniPod is that it only holds 200 units of insulin. So if you need more than 200 units of insulin within that 72-hour period, then you would either have to have a prescription that says that you need more OmniPods and you need more insulin, which can be more costly, or you'd have to go with a different insulin pump system. But this is the only one on the market that is tubeless. So I think that's a huge feature that is popular with the pediatric population. So OmniPod coverage, Medicare Part D coverage for patients with both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. There's no charge for the PDM, comes with the first box of pods for low upfront cost. Patients are no longer locked into the 5-year upgrade cycle. So the Medicare Part D does cover OmniPod, which is phenomenal. They also have financial assistance programs. If you're currently using the OmniPod system and say your insurance goes out, they can help you that way. If you're ordering directly through the Insulin Corporation, they can help you as well. Or if you're uninsured, insurance does not cover it, or you can't afford the out-of-pocket obligations, the financial assistance program can help you. The thing with diabetes is we know that diabetes technology is expensive. Having diabetes in general is expensive. Most of the time you have to meet so much of a deductible, which can be up to $1,000 still. So out-of-pocket fees really do add up. So that's one thing to consider when you're considering a CGM or an insulin pump. And then pharmacies coverage from insurance. Healthcare providers send this prescription to the specific pharmacy, and then OmniPod system processed and shipped directly to the patient. So you can get it through Medicare, you can get the financial assistance programs, or if your insurance covers it, they have specific pharmacies that they go through. And I encourage everyone who's teaching about diabetes technology to encourage patients and encourage physicians to look into where and who is providing these different systems within your state and within your coverage for your insurance. Because I personally had a experience where I was getting it from one place and they weren't being timely and they were really hard to get a hold of, and they would send me stuff late. So I finally got it to where I was able to go to a different pharmacy, even though it said it wasn't covered, or I wasn't informed it wasn't covered. I was informed it wasn't covered, but I was actually able to get it through the pharmacy where my CGM and my insulin pump comes from the same place, and they're a very large corporation. They have a very good system where they get everything out on time. And so now I don't ever have to worry about, am I going to have my supplies, or am I going to have to go back to shots for a couple of days? So it's always just something to look into and be aware of. So then the Medtronic 670G system. It is a hybrid closed loop system. As I was saying with the Medtronic Guardian Connect system, it does work with this insulin pump system. The insulin adjustment is every 5 minutes. The system automatically changes the amount of background insulin the patient receives based on the body's needs. It's recommended for type 1 diabetic patients ages 7 and above. SmartGuard predictive technology. It does have airplane mode options. It does run on single AA batteries. The sensor and transmitter are water resistant at 8 feet for up to 30 minutes, but it is recommended that you remove the pump before swimming or bathing. So you just remove the connector. You don't have to undo the sensor. You just remove the connector while you're going to bathe. And this one does hold up to 300 units of insulin, which would be more ideal if you needed those 300 units of insulin. And then the infusion set is changed every 2 to 3 days. So for Medtronic coverage, private insurance, depending on the insurance coverage, the patient may have to pay a deductible and or % of the cost until the out-of-pocket maximum is met. That's for every insulin pump. If you have private insurance, you may have to pay out-of-pocket for the deductible. Medicare and Medicaid may cover insulin pumps depending on the state and requirements. The flexible monthly payment plan program through Medtronic, again, they have another payment plan. So all of these insulin pump corporations and continuous glucose monitor corporations, they all seem to have some kind of payment plan. So these devices are accessible to patients who really couldn't afford it if you were having to pay completely out of pocket. So something to look into. There's always an option. And then the financial assistance may be available for specific situations, such as unemployment within the last 12 months, a gap in insurance coverage because of pre-existing condition, and then permanent disability. So again, always look further into something. There may be other options. And then for the Tandem Tslim, it's a T-Connect diabetes management application. It's watertight up to 3 feet for 30 minutes. It does have rechargeable batteries. It holds up to 30 units of insulin. Again, if you are going with, if you need that 300 units of insulin rather than the 200 units for the 72 hours, then you may want to go with another device. This one does integrate with the Dexcom G6 to have that similar loop system as the Medtronic. It has a control IQ algorithm, adjusts basal insulin delivery, and provides automatic correction boluses. Again, that's with the Dexcom G6. It's recommended for type 1 diabetes patients 14 years and older, and it's 38% smaller than any other insulin pump on the market. So personally, for if I had a child or if I was looking into another insulin pump, I would probably look into this one, just because I'm very comfortable with the Dexcom and I really like something being very small and being able to hide it well. So I really like that Dexcom and Tandem are intertwined. So this might be mine of choice. So for Tslim coverage, private insurance, again, depending on the insurance coverage, the patient may have to pay the deductible. Medicare and Medicaid may cover the insulin pumps depending on the state and the requirement again. So how do you decide what's best for the patient? Always consider the price and the insurance coverage. Price is always going to be the depending factor for patients and if they can afford it. But again, as educators and advocates for diabetes patients, we have so many outlets that we can look into to see what's going to be best for the patient and how they can afford it. These devices are expensive, but they are so helpful and they can be very, very, very good when it comes to being able to learn to manage diabetes better, being able to hopefully decrease the micro and the macrovascular complications that occur. So these devices are very useful, but again, they are very costly if you have to pay completely out of pocket. We want to consider the features that the devices come with. So do they have the alerts that you want? For a type 1 diabetic, I feel like it's so important to know and be alerted if my blood glucose is too high or too low. Even in the middle of the night, I feel like that's so concerning to me. And a lot of diabetes patients, they don't feel it and they aren't aware that they're going low. Being able to work diabetes camp in the summer, we see so many kids after they've ran all day and they have just expended all of their energy. Even if they normally can feel a low, they don't feel it because they're so tired. So their body isn't waking them up. And we're checking their blood sugars and they're extremely low. Having a CGM at home, being able to use it all the time, can give it ease to parents and be able for them to be able to know what their blood sugar is all the time without having to do the finger pricks in the middle of the night. So for pediatric patients, it gives comfort of mind for parents, but also for adult patients, it also gives comfort of mind for yourself. And then how user-friendly is the device? Lots of these devices are able to work. They have smart screens on them. They're able to work with iPhones. For when it comes to the insulin pump, the OmniPod is very user-friendly. If someone wasn't super tech-savvy and they were able to have just that 200 units of insulin for those 72 hours, I would definitely recommend the OmniPod just because of the simple use that the PDM has, whereas the Medtronic, it has a little bit more complicated use as far as how the device functions. How's the system support? Do they have tech support? Is there someone that is available to actually come and teach the product? In our area, OmniPod has different reps. Medtronic has reps. Who's going to be available to teach these patients exactly how to use the system? That's always something to consider or not. Do they have alarms? Does the patient want alarms? If they're a type 2 diabetic and they don't go low very often, they may not want an alarm. That Freestyle Libre may be the perfect continuous glucose monitor for them. Is it child friendly? Is it child lock friendly? All things to consider. And then reporting abilities. Is it able to send Bluetooth straight to a device? Is it able to send text message alerts to others that may need to be aware of what a continuous glucose number is? Or are you able to print off a spreadsheet of exactly what the glucose readings are or how much insulin you were able to use? Those are all things to consider for what is the best device for the patient. And those are all my references. So thank you so much for listening to my video. I have enjoyed definitely being able to share my wisdom, I guess, for diabetes and also my passion for diabetes and diabetes technology. Again, I am going to pass on my diabetes technology pamphlet. It does give just an overview of exactly what I've talked about, so it'll be a quick reference guide for you all. I thank you so much for allowing me to be in the Diabetes Center and to spend a little bit of time there. I hope in my future career and on down the road in the next year before I graduate, I hope I'll be able to come back and spend some more time with you guys. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Diabetes is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's always been where my heart is since I've been diagnosed, and also really why I started this whole journey. So I thank you so much for listening to me. I hope that you've enjoyed it, you've learned something. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My info is on the back here, so feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or want to know more, okay? Thank y'all so much.